The lawyer's pen scratched across the paper, and I watched my father's signature loop across the line that transferred 40 years of work to my older sister. Not to both of us. Just her. My mother squeezed her hand and whispered, "You deserve this, sweetheart." I stood 3 feet away, holding the coffee no one had asked me to make, and nobody looked at me. Not once. Before we dive into what happened next, if stories about family betrayal and perfect revenge keep you up at night, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and turn the notification bell. You'll want to see how this ends. Now I would like you to do me a favor. Grab a cup of coffee and stay with me as we ride together into this story. I grew up in a house that smelled like machine oil and fresh-cut metal. Our family owned a small manufacturing plant in Ohio, the kind of place that made custom parts for bigger companies. Precision and detailed work. The kind of business that required patience, attention, and a willingness to get your hands dirty. My father, Tom, built it from nothing. Started in a garage with one lathe and a dream that tasted like sweat and coffee at 4 a.m. My older sister, Pamela, was the trophy child from the moment she learned to smile on command. Teachers loved her. Relatives praised her. She had the kind of charm that made people forget she'd never actually done anything difficult. I was 2 years younger, quieter, the one who followed Dad to the factory floor on Saturdays while Pamela stayed home painting her nails. I learned to read blueprints before I learned to drive. I knew the sound of a machine running wrong before I knew how to talk to boys at school. My father would hand me a wrench and say, "Tighten that bearing housing, kiddo," and I'd do it without question. Pamela would visit once a year for the company Christmas party, wearing heels too high for factory floors, and everyone would coo over how beautiful she'd become. "She's got presence," my mother Diane would say, brushing Pamela's hair back with this proud, distant smile. Then she'd glance at me, coveralls stained with grease, hands calloused from work, and the smile would fade. "You should try dressing up more, honey. People remember beauty." I stopped trying to compete for attention around age 15. Instead, I learned the business. I memorized client names, production schedules, profit margins. I sat in on supplier negotiations while Dad talked terms. I learned how to fix machines when they broke at 2 a.m. because downtime cost money we couldn't afford to lose. Pamela learned how to take selfies in good lighting. When I turned 22, I had a degree in industrial engineering and a job offer from a company in Cleveland. Good pay and a clean office. A future that didn't involve competing with someone who won just by existing. But my father called me into his office one afternoon, the place that smelled like old leather and decades of cigarette smoke even though he'd quit years ago. "I need you here," he said, voice low and tired. "This place doesn't run without someone who understands it. Pamela's getting married next year. Your mother wants me to make her feel secure. I need you to stay and help me build something she can step into." The words landed heavy. He wasn't asking me to stay for me. He was asking me to stay so Pamela could inherit something I'd helped build. But I looked at my father, at the lines around his eyes, at the exhaustion settling into his shoulders, and I stayed. Because I loved him. Because I believed family meant something. I turned down Cleveland and stayed in Ohio. For the next 8 years I ran that factory like it was mine. I renegotiated supplier contracts, streamlined production schedules, updated equipment, and brought in new clients. I worked 60-hour weeks while Pamela worked part-time at a boutique, posting Instagram stories about brunch and her perfect life. Dad's health started slipping around my 30th birthday. Heart problems, the doctor said. Stress. Too many years carrying weight that should have been shared. My mother began talking about succession planning, and I assumed, foolishly, that all my years of work had earned me something. Then came the meeting. My parents, Pamela and her husband, me, and the family lawyer in Dad's office. The air felt staged and rehearsed. My mother sat with her hands folded, lips pressed into a thin line. Pamela looked radiant, like she'd already won something. The lawyer opened a folder. "Tom and Diane have decided to transfer ownership of the manufacturing business to Pamela, effective immediately upon Tom's retirement." The words didn't register at first. They felt like sounds without meaning. I looked at my father, waiting for him to correct the mistake. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Pamela will take over as CEO," the lawyer continued. "All assets, contracts, and responsibilities will transfer to her name." "Wait," I said, voice cracking. "Just Pamela?" My mother's expression hardened. "Pamela's married. She has a family to provide for. You're single. You'll be fine." "I've run this place for 8 years," I said, the words coming out sharper than I intended. I know every machine, every client and every process. Pamela's been here maybe 10 times in the last decade. She'll learn, my mother said simply. You can help her. Pamela reached across the table and squeezed my hand. The touch felt like pity wrapped in performance. I promise I'll take care of it, she said sweetly. You've done so much already. Now it's my turn. My father signed the papers. The pen scratched and my mother smiled. Pamela glowed. And I sat there, coffee growing cold in my hands, realizing I'd spent 8 years building someone else's inheritance. I didn't cry. Not then. I just nodded, stood and walked out of the office. Behind me I heard my mother say, she'll come around. She always does. That night I sat in my apartment staring at the ceiling, feeling something inside me shift. Not rage or sadness. Something that felt like clarity. I'd given them everything. Now I'd give them exactly what they asked for. The next morning I walked into the factory at 6 a.m. the way I had for years. The machines hummed their familiar rhythm. The smell of cutting fluid and hot metal filled the air. I moved through the space like I always had, checking production logs, talking to the floor supervisor, making notes. Pamela arrived at 10 a.m., wearing a blouse too white for a factory and heels too loud for concrete floors. She smiled at everyone, shook hands and introduced herself as the new owner. People smiled back, polite but confused. They'd been taking orders from me for years. She called a staff meeting that afternoon. Gathered everyone in the break room, stood at the front with a confidence that came from never having failed at anything and said, I'm so excited to lead this team into the future. I know there will be a learning curve, but I'm confident we'll do great things together. Someone asked about the Jefferson contract, the one we'd been negotiating for 3 months. Pamela blinked. What? The Jefferson contract, I said from the back of the room. The one worth $300,000 annually. We're finalizing terms next week. Oh. She smiled brightly. Well, I'm sure it'll be fine. Just handle it like you always do. I didn't respond. I just watched. Over the next 2 weeks, I did exactly what I was told. I helped Pamela. I answered her questions. I showed her where files were kept, how schedules worked, which clients needed careful handling. I was patient, supportive, the perfect assistant. But I didn't do anything extra. I didn't catch her mistakes. I didn't fill in the gaps. When she forgot to follow up with a supplier, I didn't remind her. When she scheduled 2 client meetings at the same time, I didn't fix it. When she approved an order without checking inventory, I let it go through. I became exactly what they wanted. Helpful but not responsible. Pamela started staying late, stress creeping into her voice. Why didn't anyone tell me this was so complicated? She'd ask, scrolling through emails she didn't understand. You'll learn, I'd say, echoing my mother's words back to her. The first crack appeared 3 weeks in. A client called, angry about a delayed shipment. Pamela took the call in her office and I heard her voice rise, defensive and flustered. When she came out, her face was pale. They're threatening to pull their contract, she said, voice shaking. What do I do? I looked at her calmly. You're the owner. It's your call. But you know them. Can't you? I'm just here to help, I said. You're in charge now. She stared at me, something like fear flickering behind her eyes. Then she nodded and walked back into her office. I heard her on the phone, trying to smooth things over with promises she didn't know how to keep. The client pulled their contract 2 days later. I watched my sister unravel slowly, one decision at a time. She approved overtime without checking budgets. She ordered materials from the wrong suppliers. She smiled through meetings with clients who could smell inexperience like blood and water. And I stood beside her, answering questions when asked, but never volunteering the information that might have saved her. My father called me one evening, voice tight. Your mother says things are getting rough at the factory. Pamela's learning, I said evenly. Can't you help her more? I'm doing exactly what you asked, Dad. I'm helping her run the business you gave her. Silence stretched across the line. Then he sighed. Just, don't let it fall apart. It's not mine to hold together anymore, I said. You made that clear. I hung up before he could respond. By month 2 the cracks were spreading. Pamela had alienated 3 major clients with missed deadlines and poor communication. She'd overspent the quarterly budget by 40% trying to fix problems she'd created. She'd hired 2 of her friends from the boutique to help with management, paying them salaries we couldn't afford for work they didn't understand. The factory floor started to feel different. Workers who used to joke with me now kept their heads down. The machines still ran, but barely. Maintenance schedules had been ignored. Quality control had slipped. Parts were going out with tolerances that would have made my father sick. I kept showing up. I kept answering questions and I kept watching. One afternoon, Pamela called me into her office. She looked exhausted, makeup unable to hide the dark circles, the stress breaking through the performance. "I need you to take over the Henderson account," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "I can't," I said. "You're the owner. Clients want to work with decision makers. But you know them. They trust you. They trusted the person who ran this place," I said carefully. "That's not my role anymore." Her hands trembled slightly as she shuffled papers on her desk. "Mom said you'd help me." "I am helping you," I said. "I answer every question you ask. I will show you where everything is. I'm here every day." "That's not enough," she whispered, and for a moment she almost looked human. Almost looked like someone drowning who finally realized the water was over her head. "You wanted this," I said quietly. "You got it." I walked out before she could respond. That night my mother called. Her voice was sharp, accusatory. "Pamela says you're sabotaging her." "I show up every day," I said. "I answer her questions. I do exactly what she asks. You know what I mean. You're letting her fail." "I'm letting her lead," I corrected. "Isn't that what you wanted? For her to run the business? Don't be difficult. You know she needs more support than that." I almost laughed. "So I should run the business while she gets the credit? You should help your sister." "I did help," I said, something cold settling into my voice. "I helped for 8 years. I helped build something worth inheriting. Now she gets to inherit it. If this business fails, then it fails under her leadership," I said. "The leadership you and Dad chose." I hung up. My phone rang again immediately. I let it go to voicemail. Month 3 brought the breaking point. Pamela had lost 2 more major clients. Production delays were piling up. Workers were starting to quit, taking jobs at competitors who actually knew how to run a factory. The bank called about missed loan payments. Suppliers started demanding payment up front. I watched it all happen with the strange calm that comes from knowing you're watching something inevitable. Like watching a building collapse in slow motion, every beam giving way exactly when physics demanded it. Pamela stopped coming in every day. Then every other day. Then maybe twice a week, always looking more frantic, more desperate. She'd sit in her office with the door closed and I'd hear her crying sometimes, phone calls with my mother that ended in shouts. The floor supervisor, Jack, pulled me aside one morning. He was 63 and had worked for my father since the beginning. "What's happening here?" he asked, voice low. "New management," I said. "This isn't management. This is a disaster." I didn't disagree. "Your father built this place with his bare hands," Jack said, something like anger creeping into his tone. 40 years of work. And she's killing it in 3 months. "She's the owner," I said simply. Jack stared at me, understanding dawning slowly across his face. "You're letting her." I didn't respond. He shook his head. "I don't blame you. But it's a damn shame." By month 4 the factory was bleeding money. Pamela had stopped pretending she could handle it. She'd show up, sit in her office and stare at numbers that didn't make sense. Sometimes she'd call me in and just ask, "What do I do?" And I'd look at her, this woman who'd been handed everything I'd built, and I'd say, "You're the owner. You decide." The first round of layoffs came in month 5. 15 people, good workers, people who'd been there for years. Pamela delivered the news in a staff meeting, reading from a script her husband had probably written, voice shaking. People didn't even look angry. They just looked tired. After the meeting she came to me. "I didn't want to do that. Payroll was over budget," I said. "You didn't have a choice. There has to be another way." "There was," I said. "6 months ago. But you made different decisions." Her face crumpled. "Why won't you help me?" "I am helping you," I said. "I'm letting you run the business you inherited." "That's not what I mean and you know it." "Then say what you mean," I said, voice harder now. "Say you want me to do your job while you take credit for it. Say you want me to fix everything while you keep the title. Say it clearly." She opened her mouth. I closed it. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I can't do this. I know, I said. She looked at me, then really looked, and I saw the moment she understood. You knew. You knew I couldn't do this. Everyone knew, I said. Except Mom and Dad. You're letting me fail on purpose. No, I said carefully. I'm letting you succeed on your own. Or fail on your own. That's what ownership means. She wiped her eyes, smearing mascara. I hate you. You don't, I said. You just hate that I'm not saving you. By month 6, my parents finally acknowledged reality. Dad called me to his house, the one that used to feel like home before it became a stage for Pamela's performances. He looked smaller than I remembered, like the stress had eaten away at him from the inside. The factory's dying, he said without preamble. I know. You have to fix it. I don't work there anymore, I said. I'm just there to help Pamela. Don't give me that, he snapped, some of the old fire returning. You're letting it die out of spite. I'm letting Pamela lead the business you gave her, I said evenly. That's not spite. That's respect for your decision. You know she can't handle it. I did know, I said. I tried to tell you. You chose not to listen. His face went red. So this is punishment? You're destroying 40 years of work to prove a point. I'm not destroying anything, I said, voice calm even as my heart raced. I show up every day. I answer every question. I support every decision she makes. If the business is failing, that's because the person you chose to run it can't run it. Then take it over, he said desperately. I'll talk to your mother. We'll transfer ownership to you. I felt something twist in my chest. For a moment I almost said yes. I almost reached for the thing I'd wanted my whole life. Then I thought about 8 years of being invisible. 8 years of building something while someone else got credit for existing. No, I said. He blinked. What? No, I repeated. You made your choice. Pamela is the owner. If she wants to sell it, file bankruptcy, or close the doors, that's her decision. Not mine. You can't be serious. You gave her everything, I said, standing. Let her have it. I walked out. Behind me I heard him shout my name, but I didn't turn back. The factory closed 2 months later. Pamela filed for bankruptcy protection, but it wasn't enough. 40 years of work dissolved in 8 months of incompetent leadership. Equipment sold at auction. Building leased to another company. Workers scattered to other jobs. My mother called me crying, begging me to do something. I listened to her sob about family legacy, about how I'd let them down, about how cruel I was. When she finally stopped for breath, I said, You told me Pamela deserved this. She got it. Then I hung up. Pamela moved back in with my parents. Her marriage didn't survive the stress. She got a job at a different boutique, back to where she'd started. Except now she was 34 with a failed business on her resume. My father had another heart attack. Mild, the doctor said, but it aged him another decade overnight. He stopped calling me. I think the silence hurt him more than anything I could have said. I got offered a job at a manufacturing firm in Michigan. Better pay, better title, a place where people valued competence over performance. I took it without hesitation. The day I left Ohio, I drove past the old factory one last time. The building looked hollow, windows dark, the sign already coming down. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt something quieter. Something that tasted like freedom. A year later my father called. His voice sounded old. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't respond immediately. Just let the words settle. I should have listened to you, he continued. Should have seen what you were building. Should have respected what you gave us. Yes, I said simply. You should have. Can you forgive us? I thought about that question. About 40 years of work were destroyed in 8 months. About 8 years of my life were spent building something for someone else, and about being invisible in my own family. Eventually, I said. But not today. He was quiet for a long moment. Fair enough. We talk now sometimes. Short calls, careful conversations, the kind you have with people you're related to but don't quite know anymore. My mother still doesn't understand what happened. She thinks I sabotaged Pamela out of jealousy. She tells people I let the family business die because I was bitter. Maybe she's right. Maybe I was bitter. But bitterness doesn't make you wrong. Pamela sent me a message last month. Just 3 words. You were right. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I'm in Michigan now, running a division of a company that actually appreciates competence. I make twice what I made at the factory. I have a life that belongs entirely to me, built by my own hands, earned by my own work. No one here knows about the family business. No one knows about Pamela or my parents or the inheritance I didn't get. Sometimes people ask if I have siblings. I say yes, but we're not close. They nod, understanding that some family distances are permanent. Late at night when I can't sleep, I think about the factory. Not with regret, but with the strange satisfaction of watching something run its natural course. My parents wanted to give Pamela everything. So I let them. I let them give her the business, the responsibility, the pressure, the consequences. And I let her keep it all when it fell apart. That's not revenge. That's just gravity. Some people are strong enough to carry weight. Some people aren't. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do is step back and let them prove which one they are. If you've ever been the invisible one, the one who did the work while someone else got the credit, you're not alone. Drop a comment and let me know your story. And hit that subscribe button because trust me, there are more stories like this coming. Sometimes the best revenge isn't sabotage. It's just stepping aside and watching people handle exactly what they asked for. Turns out, not everyone can carry the weight of their own choices. And that's not my problem anymore. Thank you for listening. See you in the next one.